Tensions with Israel ramped up this week after Canada made a joint statement criticizing Israel for the, quote, wholly inadequate aid entering Gaza. Today, the head of the United Nations issued his own plea, saying supplies to fill almost 9,000 trucks are ready and waiting.
Palestinians in Gaza are enduring what may be the cruellest phase of this cruel conflict. As the world's leading hunger assessment found, the entire population of Gaza is facing the risk of famine. Families are being starved and denied the very basics, all with the world watching in real time.
Israel eased its blockade on aid this week after more than 2 months without letting trucks pass in. It says about 300 trucks have entered Gaza since then. But the Secretary General says that aid so far amounts to a, quote, teaspoon when they need a flood. So how much does this do to alleviate the immediate needs of the people in Gaza? Danny Glenwright is President and CEO of Save the Children Canada. Danny, can you just give us a sense of what your team and their partners who are in Gaza are telling you about the need for aid in the region right now?
Sure, Peter. It's at this point, I think what we're seeing in Gaza is a profound moral failure. We are watching one of the most devastating humanitarian crises of our generation, and it is about a lack of political will. We know now that 1 million children in Gaza are at risk of famine, and more than 250,000 people right now are living in famine-like conditions. And my team is coming and they're telling heartbreaking stories of children who are being forced to eat animal food, or put flour, that little flour that remains, together with sand and eat that, scraping together leaves and twigs just to stay alive. And they're reporting to our clinics with intestinal infections, with stomach ulcers, with diarrhea. And those are the lucky ones who can get to our clinics, because many children now, because of malnutrition, are too weak to walk or even make it to our clinics. So this is a calamity, and 300 trucks is negligible compared to the amount that is required right now to address this crisis.
Yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel had sent 92,000 aid trucks into Gaza since October 7th of 2023, the beginning of this conflict. He said it was more than enough food, but that Hamas stole it. Does that reflect the reality that your team and its partners have seen on the ground?
Peter, what we're talking about is, as you said, 2.5 months where not a single truck with either commercial goods or aid entered Gaza. And this is a community that relied, before October 7th, 80% of it relied on more than 500 trucks a day just to provide aid. So absolutely not enough food is getting in there. We are talking about an entire population on the brink of famine right now. And this is starvation by design. This is not about a food supply issue. There is a deliberate withholding of aid and a deliberate lack of political will to address this problem right now. And that is the issue we should be talking about.
I want to ask about, there's this U.S. plan to change the way aid is delivered into Gaza that's supposed to go into effect at the end of this month. It's a complicated plan. It's a super controversial plan. The UN has refused to be involved with it. Can you just sort of explain what it would mean for your ability to deliver aid to the people that need it?
Well, like the UN, Peter, we will have nothing to do with this plan because it's not based on humanitarian needs. It's not based on the humanitarian principle of impartiality, neutrality. This is a plan that is military-controlled delivery of aid for the purpose of military and political imperatives. And for those reasons, it goes against the humanitarian principles, it goes against humanitarian law, and Save the Children will have nothing to do with this plan to deliver aid because it bypasses UN humanitarian systems that work, that are effective, that have been tried and tested in Gaza and in many other humanitarian contexts. And it's not going to work. It's actually going to get far less aid to those who need it, and it's going to make those in Gaza take an impossible choice, whether to leave their homes once again and face losing their homes, or stay in their homes and starve.
Yeah, I mean, the UN has said that essentially handing off responsibility for food aid delivery to the military would, the quote was, it makes starvation a bargaining chip.
you've got it. And that's exactly why we will have nothing to do with this. Right now, what we are seeing is starvation by design. It's being used for military purposes, and that is a war crime, and that is something that we cannot support. And right now, our imperative is getting to that huge number that I said, 1 million children facing starvation, children who are too weak to walk. That's what we need to deal with right now. And it's quite simple. The food and our trucks are waiting at the borders. Open the borders. Stop starving children. Enough is enough. I've been coming here talking about this on Power and Politics now for 18 months, and these problems have persisted. And right now, it's a lack of political will that's getting us there.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on the 600th day of this war. There was a joint statement from Canada, the UK, and France this week. One about stopping this renewed military incursion into Gaza, but the other part of it was about what they call the wholly inadequate amount of aid that's getting in, and threatening sanctions against Israel if more aid isn't allowed in. What would you like to see at this stage, and what more would you like to see from Canada on this file?
Here's the thing, Peter. As I said, 18 months ago, I was on this show talking about the fact we were appalled that a hospital and a school at that point had been bombed. Now we're looking at a situation where the UN says 95% of all schools have been damaged or destroyed. 94% of all hospitals have been damaged or destroyed. I was on this show 16 months ago where Canada finally came around and talked about requiring a ceasefire. The time for ultimatums is long overdue. And while we welcome this statement, I'm calling on Canada now to take action. Our government ran on a platform of respect for human rights, respect for international law, and this is the first test. It's time for action. It's no longer time for words and threats.
What would that action be, though? Like, to impose sanctions?
Absolutely, that's something that should be considered. We need a definitive ceasefire. We need to stop selling all arms either directly to Israel or indirectly through third parties, and that includes accountability as well for the grave violations we've seen against children, killing and maiming of children, abduction of children, the withholding of aid. We need accountability for all these things that have happened, and we need them all to stop. We need humanitarian access as well, as I said. We need to get the aid that we have sitting there on the borders to those who are starving right now. And over the past 2 days, 29 children and elderly have already died from starvation.
The Israeli government, we had the Israeli ambassador in here yesterday saying the statement from Canada, the UK, and France was emboldening Hamas. What do you say to that?
All I can say is it's been 2.5 months without any food or aid or anything getting into Gaza, and that's our primary concern right now. It is unacceptable, inexcusable, and illegal, and that's what we should be focused on, and that's what Canada should be focused on.
All right, we've got to leave it there. Danny, thank you for this.
Thank you.
Danny Glenwright with Save the Children Canada.